almost dropped my paper. Hi guys, it's Mena, and today in this video I'm going to do my top 10 hardest knitting projects. Now, here are some projects that I personally found very hard from when I first started them, and I actually found them, but the more I got the hang of some of them, the easier they got. But when I first started, these were pretty hard. Not when I first started knitting, but when I first started these projects, I found them extremely hard. Then, just a disclaimer, if you guys thought these were easy projects when you first started, then that's totally fine. Everyone has different learning levels. Everyone learns differently. Everyone learns at a certain pace and stuff like that. But here are some projects that I found kind of hard, but the more I did them, the more I got the hang of it. So I'm going to get started. So number one on my list had to be the Kim Kardashian beanie. So what it was is this cabled beanie, this really baggy cabled beanie. I actually don't have one to show you. I had one, but I don't know where it went. I used to have a cabled beanie that I knitted that was a Kim Kardashian inspired beanie, but I think I gave it to a friend or somebody. And that one I found super hard to knit. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of it. Ooh, I got a text. I'll look in a little bit. Oh no, I think I already read the text earlier. Sorry, it's taking me a while to pull up the photo because my phone is super slow because I've had this phone for so long. So this is what the hat looks like. So basically, if you can see, is a cabled beanie. It's very slouchy. I had a hard time knitting this because it said repeat once, and then I got confused because I thought I was screwing up the pattern because I had the stitches differently from in the pattern itself. I actually found the pattern on YouTube, and I wanted to try it out, and it was a little hard for me when I first started because I kept getting confused because I thought I kept screwing it up because even though it said repeat this certain amount of rows one more time, I thought I kept doing it wrong and stuff like that. I just kept getting confused, and I kept messing up my cable twist. I thought I was messing up my cable twists and stuff like that because at that time I was not very good at using cables. Number two on my list would have to be the Hermione Granger Hollow Hat. Actually, I do have two to show you guys. So, these are my Hermione Granger Hollow Hats. This is the first one I made. This one's pink. I'd show you the stitches in close up, but unfortunately my lighting is awful. So you can't really tell right here. This is like a purl to knit to stitch, and this one was a little difficult for me to do because of the decreasing part. The decreasing part kept kind of confusing me because it still said to keep up with the pattern even as you're decreasing. And the decreasing, I got confused because the decreasing instructions the girl did were put down in the wrong way, and I kept getting confused. As I was doing the decreasing instructions from the description box. But then as I watched the video more, I got the hang of the decreasing instructions. Yeah, the decreasing instructions got a little hard when I first made this hat. hat. I had to start over like 4 or 5 times in order to get this hat to work. So the pattern you can't see is, I'm sorry, this is such a bright hat, you can't really see the stitches close up. I'm trying. It's like a purl 2 right here and a knit 2. And then you got to keep up with the pattern as you go along. And I found that super difficult. Here's this one. Let me show you this one. This is my other one I made. This one is like a purl 2, the same hat I made, but just with different yarn. And this one was a little bit harder to do as well, because this one was a little hard to do because you have to keep up with the pattern even as you decrease. But still, it's probably one of my favorite beanies I made. I really like this beanie because like it was super fun to knit, even though the decreasing was really hard. Number 3 on my list had to be a sleeveless turtleneck. Where did I put that book? Sorry. So this is what the sleeveless turtleneck looks like. This one was a little harder for me to do because it was all done in the round, and it was my first time actually knitting in the round. And well, actually it wasn't really my first time knitting in the round. It was my first actual real sweater thing I made, and I had never knitted a sweater before, and like I found this pretty hard because of the stitches and the way the pattern was done, and I don't know why, but I refused to get help for it. I just wanted to just start trying to do it on my own. And I thought the more if I kept trying myself, the better I would get at it, but I didn't really want to get help for it. Right, I just wanted to keep trying to do it on my own. I actually made it for my mom for Christmas, and it was a little bit of a harder project because it took me such a while to do it. Number 4 on my list had to be a houndstooth bag. Where did my book go? Oh, where did I put that book? Sorry. Here it is. Oh, I actually do have a houndstooth bag to show you guys. So, this is my houndstooth bag. I made this when I was a senior in high school. This one was a little harder to do because of the pattern. You'd have to strand it and stuff. And the stranding, stranding was really hard for me at the time because I knit so tight that it would end up being such a jumbled mess and stuff. But it's still a really cute bag. This one was a little hard for me because it was like a graph pattern. Let me show you the graph pattern really quick. And at the time I was still practicing my patterns. I don't know why they call it the houndstooth. If you guys knit and know why they call it the houndstooth, please let me know down in the comments below. So yeah, this was a pretty hard project for me just because of the stranding and stuff, and back then I wasn't very good at stranding. Number 4 on my, 5 on my list would have to be the Hermione Granger I Like Cable Beanie. This one I had to start over like once, so this is what it looks like. I'm going to put it on for you guys. This was a pretty fun beanie to make for me, but still it was a little bit harder to do because for me it was a, because of the braided cable, and I still wasn't very good at the braided cable. I needed to practice that a little bit. bit, but the more I only had to start this one over once, but compared to this hat, I had to start this one over like 4 or 5 times, like 3 or 4 times. I'd only start over this one over once. It was a little hard because you had to twist the cable kind of tight. If you look like closely, you can see it's like kind of a braided pattern. It's like a twisted braid, and it's really cool, like a rope braid. But it was a little hard for me because I had a little trouble twisting the braid tight, the braided part tight, and the eyelet cable and stuff. It was just a little bit harder for me at the time because it was like my first time doing. Technically, it wasn't really my first time doing cables. It was the first time in a long time that I've done a cable hat. Excuse me. Number 6 on my list would have to be the Red Cross wrist cuffs. So this is what the Red Cross wrist cuff looks like. It's just a basic wrist cuff, and I had a hard time doing this because, again, this was stranding colors, and this time I wasn't very good at stranding colors and following graphs. So this was like I think this was my kind of like one of my second time following a graph pattern, and I'm not very good at stranding because I strand too tight. The best way if I can strand is if I do it in the English or American method when you're holding the yarn in the right hand. But if you're so here's like 2 different methods of knitting. There's continental knitting, which is European knitting, and there's English or American knitting. When you're doing the difference is when you're doing the American version of knitting, you're holding the yarn in your right hand, which I find a little slower. But there's also continental, which is when you're holding the yarn in your left hand, which is what I normally prefer because I find it's a faster way. So I would knit in the English method to make it looser because like I wasn't very good at stranding colors at the time, and I was like having a hard time following graphs, and it was like probably my second graph project. Number 7 on my list would have to be a dethroned bum flap. So this is what the dethroned bum flap looks like. I actually made it for somebody. I don't remember who I made it for. This one was a little bit of a harder knitting project because this one was also stranding even though it was smaller. I still needed to practice not stranding so tight. I had a really bad habit of just stranding way too tight, and I just had trouble following the graphs and where to put the yarn and stuff. Like, that was really hard for me. So here's a good tip. If you guys are a beginner, do not start with graphs because they're for more intermediate and advanced knitters. Even though I'm in the intermediate method, I still need to practice my graph stuff. Graphs are not actually that hard to do, but once you get the hang of it, they get like easier and easier. Number 8 on my list would have to be a British flag bum flap. So let me see if I can try to find it. I can't remember what page it's on. So this is what the actual project looks like. It looks like she's wearing a skirt, but it's actually not a skirt, it's a bum flap. This one was also kind of hard to do. I actually made this for my mom's friend for her birthday because she was from England. This one was a little harder to do because it was like a flag pattern, and again, stranding colors was not my thing, so I needed to practice it a lot more, but it was super duper, even though it was a super fun thing to try, it was still pretty hard for me because I strand pretty tightly when it comes to knitting. Number 9 on my list would have to be a wedding ring pillow. I gotta find that book. I'm so sorry. I did not come prepared. So here's what the actual pillow right here looks like right here. And then I'm going to show you guys the graph. If I can find it, it's page 98. So here's what the graph looks like. I still needed to practice my graph skills at the time, and I wasn't very good at graphing. And graphing and knitting is a little bit harder because, like, the more you don't know how to do it. Okay, so graphing's a little bit harder, but again, the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. And it's like, graphing's pretty easy once you get the hang of it, but if you're a beginner, and learning how to knit, I suggest do not do graphs. I didn't start with graphs, I just started with the basic garter stitch. But there's still a lot of fun to do, but they're still pretty hard. Number 10 on my list would have to be a checkerboard choker. So here's what the choker looks like. I actually made this for my mom's friend because she asked me to knit it for her. And I did do the project, but it was a little hard for me because it was stranding colors, and I wasn't very good at stranding colors at the time because I would still knit it so tight that the project would be so small. Well, I'd strand the colors way too tight, and it'd be so small. And I had to cut the yarn to make it looser, which I kind of hated to do because I felt like that was such a waste. Okay, so I had to tie it off, and then I had more ends to weave in, which was super annoying. Okay, annoying, but again, the more I practiced my stranding skills, the more I got the hang of it. Okay, so those were my top 10 hardest knitting projects. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye! Sorry this was so long.